Welcome to Walker of Worlds podcast. My name's Rachel, and this is the podcast where we step behind the veil and take a look at some long lost and little known spooky stories and urban legends. London is a place that we've visited several times on this podcast. It's a city of many faces, of brutal and bloody deaths before morphing into the place that we know today. Ghosts roam its streets, stations and buildings, and each one has a tale to tell. Kew Gardens is located in the leafy suburb of Richmond in southwest London. Founded in 1840 and covering 300 acres, this popular tourist attraction has over 50,000 living plants, while its library contains nearly 1 million volumes. The gardens are also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Now, Kew Gardens is probably not the place that you'd think of to have ghosts being haunted. Many times we think of ghosts as the remains of people who have had violent or horrific deaths. But among the flowers, trees, tea rooms and glass houses, ghosts walk. Many of the buildings within the gardens are the original Victorian structures, and it's said that their caretakers still live among the millions of visitors who spend time in the gardens every year. Charlie Raphael was an assistant curate at Kew Gardens in the attraction's early 20th century years. At least one of his letters is held in the garden's archives, detailing his thanks to a friend for the seeds which he sent and which, thanks to an unusual amount of rain, were doing rather well. Charlie had, it seems, sent his friend some primula seeds. Charlie is believed to haunt the Temperate House, the large glass and steel structure which houses 1,500 rare and threatened species. He is believed to be the reason for doors mysteriously opening and closing and for taps suddenly being turned on. It seems that many of the ghosts at Kew are friendly, and when you take a look at where they once worked, you can't blame them for wanting to remain there. George Bentham was born in Plymouth in 1800. He was described as the premier botanist of the 19th century. In 1855 he took up residence at Kew and worked there for 5 days a week, bar a short summer holiday. George remained at Kew until his passing in 1884 and worked in the herbarium, curating, identifying and creating handbooks on various plants and flowers. George is said to haunt his old office in the herbarium, rattling fire irons against the original grate. Kew Research Associate Robert Seeley mentions the potential for Bentham's ghost to be haunting the library. However, he takes a sceptical approach to the ghost's existence. He says the room, which used to be known as the top central library or travels room, is said to be the one where Bentham worked at Kew. The room contains a fireplace which, until it was closed up during building work some years ago, was open and had a fire fender and splendid fire irons. No doubt a fire burned there in cold weather in Bentham's time, which of course before central heating was installed. However, it was never used in later years and just remained an open fireplace. Now, the fire irons would occasionally move slightly and produce a quiet rattling sound, and this was attributed to Bentham's ghost. Who started the story, I do not know, I just picked it up when I came to Kew. Kew Palace, which is located in the grounds of Kew Gardens, is also home to supernatural activities. The palace saw the deaths of 3 members of the royal family, probably the most infamous being that of Queen Charlotte, who passed away in a chair that is still on display in the building today. As a consequence, it is unsurprising for any reports of supposed supernatural instances to have occurred over time. Both of the sightings took place prior to the reopening of the palace, which closes to the public during the late autumn and winter months. Over the course of 2 weeks, similar apparitions were said to have appeared to builders who were working on the refurbishment, with the first described as something white and the second sighting being somebody quite small dressed in a long dress who appeared to be holding a candle. The author deduces the supposed spirit to potentially be the young Prince Octavius, who died prematurely at Kew in 1783 at the young age of 4 years old. Due to his premature age at the time of his death, this would have been before the rite of passage known as breeching, which commonly took place around the age of 7. Therefore, the young prince would still have worn long skirts at the age of his passing. Of course, we have to talk about the aliens that have also reportedly visited Kew Gardens. In 2002, a crop circle appeared in a wheat field at the riverside end of the gardens. According to the newspaper articles found within the archives, with a circumference of 60 feet, the circle was said to have been perfectly symmetrical, with a floral design decorating the centre. What was most curious about the occurrence was that the wheat surrounding the design remained completely intact, and the 8-foot-high walls that surrounded the gardens were not reported to have been breached by the Royal Parks Constabulary, leaving the curator a mystery that baffled both the media and the staff working in the gardens at the time. It appears that the mystery of the circle remains unsolved on whether it was the work of a supernatural force or simply a UFO enthusiast or even just a prankster. The tale of the crop circle has regardless become part of the illustrious history of the Royal Botanic Gardens and is suspected supernatural occurrences. However, we can't stop there because Richmond itself is rich with paranormal activity. Ham House is a short drive south of Kew Gardens. This 17th century mansion on the banks of the Thames is said to be home to 15, maybe 16 ghosts. At the centre of all the supernatural activity seems to be the restless spirit of Elizabeth Murray, Duchess of Lauderdale. She inherited Ham House from her father in 1655. In life, Elizabeth was ambitious and ruthless. She played a dangerous political game by being friends with both Charles II and Oliver Cromwell. Her aim was to guarantee herself a place of influence with whoever ended up in power. She was equally strident in her personal life, taking family members to court if they crossed her. When her first husband died suddenly, she quickly married the recently widowed John Maitland, 1st Earl of Lauderdale. Some speculated darkly about how the suspiciously close deaths of both her husband and the Earl's wife facilitated Elizabeth's rise further up the social ladder. But in the end, she ran out of luck. After the death of her second husband came financial problems. This, along with ill health, forced Elizabeth to confine herself to a single ground floor apartment at Ham House. It's on the ground floor where ghostly events seem to be concentrated. Many visitors report a strong, oppressive atmosphere in the room. Pets seem reluctant to enter. There is also a large looking glass dating from Elizabeth's time that some people say they are too scared to glance into, inexplicably afraid of what or whom they might see staring back. In fact, so powerful is the force that dominates the room that staff have been known to mutter "Good afternoon, your ladyship" before entering, just to be on the safe side. In addition, a woman in black, believed to be Elizabeth, has been seen on the stairs nearby. But Elizabeth isn't the only spirit to haunt Ham House. The ghostly screams of a young, suicidal nobleman who fell in love with and was rejected by a servant girl have also been heard at the property. There is also apparently at least one ghostly pet that still roams the hallways and rooms of the beautiful building. Ham House is operated and owned by the National Trust, and they do, from time to time, organise ghost tours. So if you're interested in going and having a look around, feel free to check out their website. And those, ladies and gentlemen, are the ghosts of Kew Gardens and Ham House. If you enjoyed this podcast, please feel free to check out our website at www.roswellpublishing.co.uk. And until next time, stay spooky.